My childhood was very interesting, colorful, challenging, and enlightening, I would say. I grew up in a home with 5 other siblings. We were new to Canada. I was actually born in India. We moved here when I was 2, so my parents were getting acclimated to the country, learning a language and all sorts of things. So it was very, very much settling in, putting some roots down here so their children could have a better life. We didn't have a lot of extra cash, so we actually spent every single summer from as far back as I can remember going to the berry fields and helping my mother pick berries. And so I learned to work hard from a very young age. All of us were together and we struggled, but it was so fun as well, if I can say that, picking berries all summer being fun. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. This is so awesome. William James once said, compared with where we ought to be, we are only half awake. Which is kind of funny. It's not on, I don't think. I'm just loud.
She said, I'm really loud.
I told her before, I'll use this one.
I got it for you too. You can go ahead while I get this one.
Okay. Well, rewind and start again. It's like the selfie 100. Okay. Well, there's a really good comedian that says the selfie's really lonely. His name is Sebastian Maniscalco or something. If you haven't seen him, look him up, because he says there's so many people in the world, but you got to do this. Like, really? You got to be... Anyway, that's not in the script. Okay, so we'll start again. William James once said, compared with where we ought to be, we are only half awake. Like I said, which is funny to say to a group of moms. Parenting is essentially like free falling, so you have to have a lot of faith and coffee and wine. And most moms struggle. But then there's those women that make motherhood look so easy. Don't you want to give them just a little kick in the shins, right? Just a little, a little nudge, right? How do they do it? Did they have a fairy tale childhood? This is often where your inner critic shows up and tells you why you could never measure up to that woman. And to pile on, your inner critic at that point then starts to focus on all of the lack in your life. Each of these downward spirals starts simply because of the way you're interpreting that other person's life. In this time I have with you today, I'd like you to realize that you can turn down the volume on that inner critic and awaken your inner champion in its place. And you might be thinking, well, I've made it this far in life. Could that nagging inner critic really have that much influence? Well, not only is your inner critic keeping you up at night, it has a monumental influence on your children. Just this month, a survey by the Kids Help Phone found that 22% of the respondents were thinking about taking their own life. It's almost 1 in 4, okay? More than half of those kids had already put a plan into place. 75% of the girls were there on the edge due to body image concerns. Body image. The inner critic really likes to feast on that one. The truth is, we've been taught to measure success from the outside in. Wealth, power, beauty, all external forms of recognition. And it's been passed on from generation to generation, but here's the catch. With each successive generation, we're getting better at living from the outside in. For most of us, this belief in ourselves just weakens over the course of our lives because, you know what? We've been measuring with sticks that belong to others. And wouldn't you agree, oh my goodness, the need to measure up really, really is amplified when you become a mom. Are you nursing? Are you co-sleeping? Are you working? Did your kid make the rep team? OMG, is your kid still using a soother? Like, it doesn't end. And when, and it's on and on and on. And so I'd like you to think about things like this. Imagine that the harsh words of another are like a little drop of poison into your bloodstream. But that impact of the harsh words you say to yourself, it's like hooking yourself up. Ooh, sorry, that's the wrong one. that was a good ooh, hey? The impact of those harsh words you say to yourself are like hooking yourself up to a bag full of IV toxins. It's just so much more damaging. So really, really visualize that. In my more than 7 years of crisis management coaching, I've helped people who seem broken beyond repair, and I feel eternally grateful to be a part of what they call miracles. I really believe in taking a realistic approach to life's challenges, and challenges that I consider spiritual exercises for the soul. Just as you can change your body, so too can you sculpt your soul. But building your inner champion requires patience. You can't expect to be in a constant state of gratitude and be pooping butterflies and rainbows. It doesn't happen like that. When you hear the voice of your inner critic, I'd like for you to stand up to it like you would a bully. Ask questions. When you question your inner critic, you'll see it has no interest in being logical. Not at all. It speaks involuntarily and strictly according to the programming you established in your formative years, habits. You'll come to see that those clothes no longer fit. I don't know what you do when your clothes no longer fit. You know what I do? I try to squeeze into them a little bit longer, put on the Spanx, but eventually, I replace them with something that does fit. And it's same deal here, except skip the Spanx. I'd like to share a story about a little girl with you. By the time she was 5 years old, this little girl suffered all sorts of trauma. She was always scared. If you met her, however, you'd never know that the voice in her head told her that she's useless, unwanted, and that no one would notice if she simply disappeared. When this girl grows up, she's skilled, covering up her pain, covering up her self-loathing. She drives herself to experience success to further bury her secrets. And then she becomes a mom. When her son was born, she was determined to create a safe and perfect life for her baby. But below the surface, a voice inside her would say, "This baby is you. This baby is a reflection of you." She loved her baby more than anything, but because she had a weak self-image that defined her as virtually worthless, she was truly at a crossroads. She had to either change her inner world or let the same storms that were inside her descend on her baby. The only way she could ensure she didn't harm him was to look within and give her demons an eviction notice. How? By letting go of her limiting beliefs about herself. Those limiting beliefs, they were coded into her brain during childhood. Just like a computer is fitted with an operating system that tells the hardware what to do. In a nutshell, the computer code was revised to tell her that it was okay to be happy, when it was okay to let go of her story. And she stopped feeling like a victim and began to thrive. She created a happy childhood, not only for her baby, but also for herself. You really, really can write the story of your life. I have. I realized that my parents hadn't planned for my childhood to be as hard as it was. It just happened, and they dealt with it based on how their programming directed them to deal with each challenge. It's the same for you as it is for me. So as a starting point, if you can take away an audit for yourself for the next week, audit what you're saying and you're, out loud and to yourself. And then once you're done, if your children talk, listen to what they say. Audit their communication. Do they sound like you? Mine do. Henry David Thoreau says, we must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake. Once upon a time, when you were a little girl, you dared to dream the wildest dreams and imagine the most incredible future. I'd like to help you get right back to that feeling of impossibility now. Follow those dreams. They know the way. If someone had told me when I was a little girl, always scared, that this place of quiet existed in my mind, my heart, my soul, I would have called them a liar. Full on, you are lying to me. But it's real, and I've been able to turn down the volume on my inner critic. And you know what? Let my inner champ roar. You are the moms, the heart center of the home, of the world. You can show your kids how it feels to glow from the inside out. And maybe we'll be the ones to raise a generation of aware and awakened children who will light the way. Thank you.